Hi, Dr. Snyder. This is Jamie Escalante, and this is my presentation on Sir Gawain and the Green Knight and reaction to offense. So since you are familiar with this specific poem, I am thankful I don't have to go too much into the storyline. I have just an overview here. That way I can spend a bit more time on the aspects that were new to me and possibly were new to you. I didn't run into much criticism that really tackled the concept of offense within this specific poem. So I'm assuming that this is going to be a little bit new to you. I'm just going to go back a little bit. So then, as just an overview, Sir Gawain and the Green Knight, set in the 14th century, written during that time, anonymous, but most attribute it to the Pearl Poet. You know this. Basically, Green Knight challenges Arthur's court, which Gawain kind of intercepts the Green Knight and Arthur throwing down, quote unquote, says, "I beseech ye, therefore let this venture be mine. Go, Gawain." He takes on the challenge, chops off the head of this Green Knight, who turns out to be magical and doesn't die. Therefore, Gawain will need to visit, according to the pact that the two of them had made, this Christmas jest that the Green Knight invited him to engage in, would need to visit the Green Chapel, find the Green Knight, and the Green Knight would return the same blow, quote unquote. So then Gawain goes in search of the Green Chapel and the Green Knight in a year, and meets Lord Bertilac. There's another game he enters into in exchange of winnings. He finds out ultimately Lord Bertilac is the Green Knight, was put up to this whole ordeal by Morgan Le Fay. Lady Bertilac, who had attempted to seduce him, was encouraged to do so, or told to do so, by Lord Bertilac. The girdle, which possessed magical powers, that she gave to Gawain for protection, and Gawain hid from Lord Bertilac, and he lied to him in regards to, proved to be Gawain's demise. He, after being informed of the deception, curses womankind and himself, dons the girdle, returns back to Arthur, who welcomes him lovingly along with his court, and they wear the green girdle as a symbol of their loyalty to one another. What we'll talk about is the concept of offense within Sir Gawain and the Green Knight, that I believe, from what I found, is a key factor, a very integral aspect of the text and the storyline that I was quite fascinated by. To begin, I'm just going to start with just some instances of offense that I found within the text. First, it's important to know that the entire setting really is based upon the aftermath of offense. It's after a time of war. So that is the time frame within which Arthur's court is gaining renown, and the Green Knight goes to challenge Arthur's court. Now, this is the first instance of offense that I'll probably get into a bit in detail and depth. It's interesting because the Green Knight, with his challenge and his insults, Arthur did not need to react in the way that he did. It's interesting to find how and see how Arthur reacted and what the implications of that were. And that's ultimately what is fascinating about the concept of offense within this text, is that every time offense arises, it's almost as though it's being used as an opportunity, and also presents varying options when it does surface. I wanted to look at the definition of offense, and so I just wanted to kind of reference what I have here, because it's just easier to do that. So when we look at the definition of offense, we have, let's see, so we have biblical use, which is the striking the foot against something, stumbling, a stumbling block, let's see, breach of law, an illegal act or omission, hurt, harm, injury, or damage, feeling of being hurt, painful, or unpleasant, the condition of being regarded with displeasure, disfavor, disgrace, action or fact of offending, wounding the feelings of, or displeasing another. I feel like 4 A and B are kind of what we're seeing with the Green Knight and Arthur at this point. The action of attacking or assailing, assault, attack, attacking of a team player. So just get an overview here of what the definition of offense is. And then I just brought out something here that kind of goes into, or kind of explains, the growth of the word. What's fascinating is we start here with assail. That's in, let's see, so 1225. Then you kind of see the progression. We have lash here, to turn one's hand, back there, to set against, take, which is fascinating. You think about the concept of that, regards to war or even honor. And then 1385, which is around the time that the poem was written, and we have offend. So when that concept kind of transformed into that specific word, which I think was kind of interesting. I'm going to go back to the keynote now and just continue here. So the second instance of offense that I wanted to discuss is between Gawain and Morgan Le Fay. So the text talks about how Gawain is captivated by Lady Bertilac. Morgan Le Fay, he is offended by, he finds displeasure in her appearance. And what's interesting in this specific instance is that the contrast between the lady and Morgan Le Fay, whom he doesn't know is Morgan Le Fay, and Gawain is, has not been enlightened at that point, to Morgan Le Fay's involvement. But it's interesting because had Gawain not so readily accepted that which was pleasing to his eye, and had he thought more deeply and had a more depth of character, reacted different to Morgan Le Fay, or even analyzed why he was reacting to her in that way, the story may have gone a bit differently. And what's interesting to me here is just that we see a picture of offense blinding someone to the truth, which I think is important to point out. The third instance of offense that I have listed is between Gawain and Lady Bertilac. Here is this specific instance is after he finds out that she had been the text makes it sound like she was really instructed by Lord Bertilac to seduce him and test his moral character. He ignores the initiator, which is Lord Bertilac, and instead condemns an entire sex of people, which is harmful to that in, to women. That's the sex he condemns. And also harmful to himself in that he is allowing this specific offense to kind of dictate his perspective women from there on, which ultimately will rob him of, truly enjoying female company. And then also it does harm women. So we have a picture of a fence, and how one reacts to it is doing harm to a large population, and then also robbing oneself. So just important to note these things within the text. Geraldine Haigh, feminist critic, professor, University of Texas. We're going to talk about her offense, that she took offense to another critic, and I'm going to go to actually her website. I know as people, we can sometimes take offense to others, or what other people do to us, and so it's not surprising. Geraldine Haigh. Okay, so this is just her webpage that I found on her at her university where she teaches. She's quite accomplished. She has received many scholarships and fellowships. These are all of her works. I mean, it's pretty extraordinary what she's done. And again, she looks like she mainly focuses on feminism, and she also brings in a lot of race issues. So I just wanted to kind of show that because I was pretty impressed by it. Derek Brewer said a few things that she took offense to. He said that Gawain, all characters need to be viewed through Gawain. He also said that in regards to medieval literature, that Mort de Arthur, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly, specifically would not be something that women or undergraduates like. She took great offense to that. And what happened with Haigh, I think is important to point out, is for what I've read of her in her reasoning behind beginning her dissertation, which really is to confront a lack of feminist discourse that she found in regards to medieval literature or in that specific community, and also to confront Derek Brewer. She seems to have maybe done what we saw Gawain do a few slides ago. It seems she may have been a bit blinded by this offense of hers. She begins to move into a direction that is incredibly relativistic. I have a few instances here of her kind of going off the deep end, is what it kind of sounds like, with regards to her interpretation of the text and what she's done with it. She says the most shocking is that language is sex. She says that there is an actual, sexual interaction taking place between Lady Burleigh and Gawain, and she says this to kind of make a point in confrontation to Brewer, where and the critical community really, who she's read. Most people's interpretations say that there was no seduction and that the lady's just a temptation. Haigh is offended by that and says, no, the lady's not a temptation. There actually is a seduction that takes place. So she's really just, and the text is really clear that Lord Burleigh is the one who told Lady Burleigh to do what she did, and also talking is not sexual intercourse. So it's pretty clear. Haigh kind of demonstrates just this manipulation of the text in order to further her agenda, which is pretty dangerous. However, the ultimate point of my presentation is to allow offense to be an opportunity to learn, to grow, to not shut everything out because one is offended, but to take time to reflect upon why and move forward in a way that is beneficial to yourself, in accordance with what's true, what's right, and also benefits others. So it was neat to see that within Sir Gawain and the Green Knight, and to look at some critics who found fascinating. So this is a great opportunity. Thank you so much.